Hi, I'm Eric Price with LI-COR Biosciences. Today I'd like to talk to you about the LI-6800 and its 3x3 centimeter chamber, as well as the red-blue light source. We'll talk about how to install the chamber onto the instrument, but first let's talk about apertures. We'll start by looking at the chamber itself. This chamber has a clear top by default, a propofilm cover, but you can also add a red-blue light source on top of that, which I'll show you later in this video. As you can see, this chamber right now has a 3 centimeter by 3 centimeter aperture. The goal with any leaf level measurements is to make sure that you completely fill the space inside the chamber with leaf material. Otherwise, you'll need some other way to calculate or measure the leaf area, since it goes directly into the photosynthesis calculation. If you find that you are unable to fill this 3 centimeter by 3 centimeter aperture, we have other smaller apertures that allow you to completely fill the chamber as well. This is a 2 centimeter by 3 centimeter aperture, and this is a 1 centimeter by 3 centimeter aperture. This aperture in particular may be especially helpful if you're working with grasses or other long leaves that are not very wide. This way you can lay a blade of grass along the length of the aperture and completely fill the leaf area inside. To install these apertures, it's very easy. I would recommend installing the apertures while the chamber is removed from the sensor head, but you could do that while the chamber is on the sensor head as well. You'll see for each aperture there is a small indentation. You can use your finger to push this aperture out of place, or you can use a small coin to push the aperture out as well. Simply snaps out of place. With the bottom aperture, we would recommend moving the thermocouple down. So simply pull on this bottom part of the thermocouple, maybe wiggle it a little bit to move it down so that you don't accidentally break it while you are removing apertures. So you can see there's a small indentation here on the bottom aperture as well. And you can use a coin to push that aperture out of place if necessary. Then simply snap the new aperture in. For both of the new apertures, they can go lengthwise or straight on. We typically recommend doing lengthwise, especially for grasses. But either way will work, and you can simply snap it into place. Make sure that you install the same aperture on the top and bottom half of the chamber so that the gaskets line up with each other. If you are using the 1x3 aperture, you may also need to remove this bottom plate using a Phillips screwdriver, just removing these 4 screws. And this plate will snap off as well. There's another plate that allows you to put a thermocouple anywhere across this line, and that way you will get a good measurement, making sure that the thermocouple touches the leaf area that's inside the chamber. So once you have your apertures installed, it's very easy to connect the chamber itself to the sensor head, and we'll show you that next. First, we'll need to remove whatever chamber is connected to the sensor head currently. Right now I have a fluorometer, so I'll need to remove that. The first thing I'll do is remove the cable from this clip. Simply pull that out, and also disconnect it from the console if it's connected. Next, I will want to remove the plate, if there is a plate here, and disconnect the PAR sensor and the thermocouple, which may be connected to T1 or T2. Both of these connectors simply pull straight forward, just like that. Next, we will remove the 2 captive screws that are keeping the fluorometer in place. These are Phillips head screws. You'll typically want to use a long screwdriver that comes with the instrument so that you can access those 2 screws. Next, you'll want to remove the screws that hold the springs in place. There's one located here and one on the other side. Again, these are Phillips screws, fairly easy to remove. Once you have removed the screws from the spring and loosened the captive screws, you'll simply pull straight forward on the fluorometer and it will come apart like this. Once you have the sensor head open, it is a good idea to inspect the gaskets and filters. So there's a large gasket here, and this is an area around the mixing fan. And then there are 2 filters here. So you want to inspect them, make sure that there's no damage. There's also a large O-ring right around here. You want to make sure that that doesn't have any cracks or damage to it as well. If there are any issues, you may need to replace the O-ring or the gaskets or the filters, or remove any debris that may be around the mixing fan. Next, we'll install the 3x3 chamber. Now, when you go to install the chamber, it is very easy to do this. Just to put on the chamber with the spring facing down, and as you can see, I have no way to connect it to the handle at this point. So make sure that when you're putting the chamber on, that you hold the spring upright so that it can make contact with the lever here. This is only applicable to this side where there's a fan in the way. The other side is just fine. So make sure you do that. Again, we have 2 captive Phillips screws holding the chamber in place. So I'll just tighten those. Make sure that you tighten them just until they feel tight and then give it another quarter turn just to make sure that it's securely on the sensor. Now you will add the 2 screws back in that hold the springs in place. So once you've installed the spring screws, we'll go to the thermocouple. You may have a thermocouple already installed, or you may need to remove it from a different chamber. Simply push straight up onto the thermocouple and wiggle it slightly if needed. This thermocouple routes to either T1 or T2, either one could work, and simply push straight in. We'll also want to connect the PAR sensor, and one trick that I like to do is route it through the hinge plate here. And connect it to the PAR connector down here. Now we have installed our 3x3 chamber. I'll show you how to install the red-blue light source on top of that as well. The red-blue light source has 2 screws on the top. Again, these are Phillips screws, and what you'll need to do is just simply rest the light source on top of the chamber and connect those 2 screws to the Once you've installed those 2 screws, you will need to connect the head connector. Again, you can route it through the hinge plate on this side, just like this, so that it stays out of the way. And you will want to connect it to this connector labeled light source, LS. You'll see that there is a red mark on the connector itself that connects with a red mark on the connector. So make sure those 2 line up while you are connecting. Again, this pushes straight in and snaps in place. Once you've done that, install the cover on top of these connectors, if you have it, to make sure that those cables are protected from the elements. Once you've connected your sensor head to the console, you can start up the instrument. You'll notice that it automatically detects that a 3x3 chamber is installed, but it does not know which aperture is installed. So you'll need to select the correct aperture. 3x3 chamber, 2x3 aperture with forward to back alignment, or side to side alignment, 1x3 or 1x3. Once you've selected the correct aperture, you can also go to the Constants tab and Gas Exchange. This is where we enter the leaf area. By default, the instrument assumes we have completely filled the chamber, but if you're unable to fill the chamber with leaf material, you'll need to enter the correct leaf area here. We can also go to the Environment tab and go to the Light tab. Now we've installed a head light source. So you want to tap on head light source on the right hand side here. And here's where we can control the red-blue light source by giving it a set point and how much red versus blue light is being provided in the chamber. Once you've set those things up, you're ready to make measurements. So that is how you use and install the 3x3 chamber and the red-blue light source. As you can see, it's not a chamber of secrets. It's actually very easy to install. We have several other videos and documents about other chambers that you might want to use for the LI-6800. Those can be found on our support site, as well as several other videos and documentation. And as always, please feel free to contact us or our distributors around the world if you have any other questions.